Hi again. In Walter Rauschenbusch, Christianity and the Social Crisis, page 346, this is the chapter that he entitles simply, What to Do. He's talking about all of the 300 pages that preceded this is a build-up to what Christians can do as, he didn't know it, but World War I approach. What's the potential? What's the advantage that Christians have in this age, that is the turn of the 20th century, that they've never had before? And he talks about cul-de-sacs or dead ends that the Christian church has already had to discard as false applications of the kingdom concept in the world. He says another cul-de-sac of Christian endeavor is the organization of communistic colonies. There's no reason why a number of Christian people should not live in commons or organize for cooperative production if they can hope to make their life more comfortable, more free from care, and more moral in its relations. But past experience does not show that such colonies served to Christianize social life at large. The example is not widely contagious, even if the colony is successful. If the experiment fails through any of 100 practical causes, its failure is heralded as a convincing demonstration that competition is the only orthodox and successful basis of society. Settlements with some communistic features are likely to increase in the future as the eyes of cultured people are open to the wastefulness and unhappiness of ordinary life, and they may be exceedingly useful if they gather like-minded men and women in groups, and thus intensify and clarify their convictions by intercourse. But they will be influential on a large scale only if the ideas and experiences wrought out in these settlements find channels to run out freely into the general unregenerate life through books, newspapers, or lectures issuing from the settlement. In the main, the salt of the earth will do its work best if it is not stored in casks by itself, but rubbed in evenly and generously where it is most needed. The mass of society will ponderously move an inch where a select colony might spurt a mile toward the future, but the total gain in foot-pounds will be greater in the mass movement. The cooperative stores in England and on the continent are a far more hopeful and influential education in the cooperative principle than the communistic colonies have been, because they are built into the mass of the general life. If the church should be, in the future, really seek to Christianize, let's read that again. If the church should, in the future, really seek to Christianize social life, it will almost certainly be tempted to make itself the chief agent and beneficiary of the process. Attempts will be made to organize ecclesiastical duplicates or fraternal insurance societies, cooperative undertakings, labor bureaus, etc. There will be Christian socialist parties in politics. The church will claim to be the only agency through which social salvation can come. It will seek to keep the social movement under clerical control. This effort will be prompted partly by the desire to put its organized power at the service of the poor, partly by the fear of non-Christian or anti-Christian influences which may dominate social radicalism, and partly by the instinct of self-assertion, self-protection, and self-aggrandizement which resides in every social organization. Just as the desire to save individuals is now frequently vitiated by the anxiety to increase church membership, so the desire to save social life may be vitiated by the anxiety to keep the church to the front. Those ecclesiastical bodies which have the strongest church consciousness are most likely to insist that this work shall be done through them or not at all. The history of the social movement in Europe has furnished most interesting and significant demonstrations of this tendency. But it is full of peril, not only to the church, but to the social movement itself. It beclouds the social issues by ecclesiastical interests and jealousies. It subtly and unconsciously changes the aim from the salvation of the people to the salvation of the church. The social movement could have no more powerful ally than religious enthusiasm. It could have no more dangerous ally than ecclesiasticism. If the church truly desires to save the social life of the people, it must be content with inspiring the social movement with religious faith and daring, and it must not attempt to control and monopolize it for its own organization. If a man wants to give honest help, he must fill himself with the Spirit of Jesus and divest himself of the ecclesiastical point of view. Rauschenbusch is saying this, of course, as a good and loyal Baptist, but he's obviously thinking of his own tradition and its, well, with many Protestant churches, insularity. Put in a link to examples of what Rauschenbusch is probably thinking about here, such as the movement in the utopian direction of some early American movements, like Anna Lee and the Shakers. So I'll put in a link to a Gaustad video from the Rise at Adventism on the influence of some of these utopian communities, this specifically on the significant but ultimately doomed Shaker movement in the early 19th century.